I am so glad that you're taking a few minutes out of your schedule to join me for this conversation today. And if you're watching, I totally believe that you are watching based on not coincidence. I am believing that you're watching because this is something that you can truly benefit from. Like maybe you've been pushing through, maybe you've been having a hard time, maybe you've been showing up for everybody else, feeling no one is showing up for you. Maybe you're feeling a bit hopeless. Maybe it's that, adulting is difficult and not having the expectation that the adult life would be exactly what it is. And maybe it's that every time you get over one situation, it's like you're back in another situation and you may be thinking, my goodness, I just need a minute. I just need to breathe. I just need to let go for a minute. And that's exactly what today's conversation is about. It's about faith, it's about fear, and it's about the fight to keep going because even the strongest among us, believe it or not, those strong ones that you see out there, they also get tired. So I want to have a real honest conversation with you this morning. And that conversation is simply that faith does not cancel fear. Yes, we who are believers act on faith without works as dead, or faith as big as a mustard seed. And so we may stay in action doing what we believe God has called us to do. But even though we have that faith, faith does not cancel the human fear that we feel. We can quote all the right scriptures. We can smile in public, and people may not see what's going on because the mask that we have hides it all. And we can do all of those things and still be wrestling with anxiety when the lights go out. Believe it or not, that is a big part of the reason why many people don't want to be alone. It's a big part of the reason why many people aren't ready to listen to their own thoughts or sit in silence, because when you are in silence, you're flooded with those thoughts of what may have happened or the things that are stressing you out, and so staying busy keeps your mind active. And I'll tell you that I have been there in seasons where I really didn't know what was next. Like there were times when I questioned if I was still called, if I was still capable, if I was still chosen by God. And those times really had me questioning myself, questioning whether it was through my own might that I was trying to make things come to be and not truly following the promptings and guidings of God. But one of the things that I learned is that fear only has the power when you stop moving and sit in it. Yes, we can acknowledge the fear, but we can take action in spite of the fear. Because fear doesn't mean that what you think is going to happen. Fear is false expectations appearing real. And while that's the case for fear, faith also means that you're not going to be afraid. It means that you're going to keep walking while you are afraid. Look at some of the biggest prophets in the world. Like I think it was Abraham who was conscious about the fact that he stuttered. There was a fear there that maybe people wouldn't listen. And so there are examples that we have time and time again of people who were afraid. Even Jesus, when he asked God, to take this lot away from me, not knowing, what would happen, like being afraid of what those next steps would be, but still taking action in obedience. And so when we experience fear, we have a choice to either allow that fear to cripple us and keep us stagnant in the place that we are, or to understand that we could take action in spite of the fear. And I want you to know that you don't even have to feel brave to keep moving forward. You really don't. All you need is grit. All you need is the faith to say, God, you told me to do it, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it trembling. I'm going to do it step by step. I'm going to do it not being concerned about what anybody has to say. I'm going to do it even though it looks like it's impossible. And there are many references that I can go to where impossible things, or things that seem to be impossible, became possibilities. If we just look at Noah and the ark, if we just look at the Virgin Mary having a baby, if we look at Elizabeth and all the years that she tarried before she had John the Baptist. Like there were many situations where it just looked like this could not become a reality. But when God says that something will be, his word cannot come back to him void. And so there are seasons when life feels like it's too much. This could honestly be where you've lost your job and you've been trying so hard to find a new job, and the job market is so tight and so bad. It could be where you're feeling strong for everybody else and you're here busy doing this and that, to prove your worth to other people and to show people that you're strong, and you're finding the strength for everyone else except yourself. It could be that you're struggling with some disease. It could be that you don't have money. It's your finances, and it could just be that it's the weight of the responsibilities that never end. Like as an adult, your responsibilities never end. There is always something that is required of you. And I can tell you that in those moments, I've had to remind myself that God doesn't just want to use my strength. He actually wants to meet me in my weakness. And in full confession here, I want to say that there have been many times when I wanted to prove, and so I wanted to doing it of my own strength, making it happen of my own strength. And in those times, I can tell you that the weight was heavier. I can tell you that the stress was even more. But in times when I say, well, God, you give this to me, and you've asked me to live this particular purpose. And so if you've given it to me, you're going to provide not just the resources, but you're also going to provide destiny helpers. You're going to provide open doors. And so I give it back to him, because this is what you've called me to do, and you know best how to get it done. And in reality, right? Doors that God opened, no man can close. I have had opportunities that people said I didn't deserve. I have had opportunities that people tried to close the door on and say, hey, find somebody else. I've had opportunities that I did not even ask for, sitting right here in my office, either getting an email or a call, because it was orchestrated by God. And when we go to God in our weakness, God gives us grace. When we go to God with our tears, we're crying just us and God. No one else is watching us. God meets us right there. When we go to God in our prayers, even when we don't know what to say, even when we just say, God, I don't know, God is coming to meet us. And when we say, Lord, I can't carry this no more, he is reminding us that we don't have to carry it alone. And I know that you're saying, listen to Gwesa. Listen to Gwesa. Yes, I can go to God, but I need a solution right now. God's timing is not our timing. We have to be willing to persevere. We have to be willing to be refined, go through the process, because let's just be real. Faith is like any other muscle that we have. For me, in my exercise now, I can jog a little faster than I couldn't jog at one point. But because I worked that muscle and jog for 30 seconds, and jog for 1 minute, then jog for 2 minutes, to jog for 10 minutes, the muscle got stronger and stronger and stronger. It grew through resistance. And that's what our faith is like. Our faith grows. It is a muscle that we have to just keep exercising. And I want to remind you today that the fight that you're in, whatever that fight is not designed to destroy you. When you submit yourself truly, and when you submit to what God has called you to be, that fight is going to develop you. And down the road, you're going to look back and you're going to say, now I understand why that had to happen. I cannot become healthy if I don't build physical endurance. And I can't build spiritual endurance in comfort. Faith grows when God delays the answer. So if there's something that you've been praying for, if there's something that you've been asking for and you are a believer, understand that your faith will grow as God delays the answer if you truly believe that God has called you for that particular thing. Faith matures when we have to wait. Everything isn't about instant gratification, but we live in a world where instant gratification is what we long for. This year, my husband and I went on our honeymoon. We've been married 5 years. So many things happened. First, it was the pandemic. Then my my fight with making sure that my body didn't get cancer, and it was our businesses closed. It was just one thing after the next. But we believed in faith that we would get to this wonderful honeymoon that we had in September of this year. 5 years of a delay. And I can tell you it was so much sweeter because of the delay, because we had to wait. It was so much sweeter. And so during the waiting period, I encourage you to build your faith. Look back on every single time that God has come through for you and remind yourself, and then question yourself. I question myself all the time. I ask myself, are you doing this of you? Or are you doing this because God has directed you to do this? When I do anything that God directs me to do, it just happens. That there may be hiccups, there may be challenges, but it is successful. When I do things that I want to do, there's a huge fight in there. Sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. And so I've learned to wait on God. I have learned that doing what God has asked me to do is so much better than what I want. And when I question why I'm doing things, is this attached to a trauma? Is this attached to proving? And when you sit in that silence and you wait for God, you understand that your healing has actually started to take place. And so when I look back over my life, from surviving loss, from abuse, from rebuilding our finances, and even leading a cancer group through heartbreak when people pass away, I realized that every single challenge has taught me how to fight differently, because not every fight is the same. And so now I don't fight in panic. I fight in peace, because I know that if I give it to God and it is something that He wants, He will make it happen. So I want to share these 4 things very quickly with you if you're in a hard season. Actually, I want to share these 3 things with you if you're in a hard season. And these are 3 things that truly help me. The first thing I want to share with you is, one, you are allowed to rest. It is when we are rested that we can have clarity, that we can have communion with God, that we can be clear enough to differentiate His voice from our voice. When we are resting, it's like it's a worship to God, because God never asks us to prove our worth to Him. He never asked us to prove anything to the point that we get exhausted. God modeled rest. And so God in creation rested on the 7th day. And Jesus, when He came to earth, chose the 7th day as His Sabbath. And so those of us who are kingdom citizens and believers, we have to follow the model that has been set for us, and do not care about the world, and do not get caught up in hustle culture, in the chase or pursuit of wealth or status and all of these different things. So I want to encourage you to rest. The second thing I want to encourage you in is to remind you that God keeps His promises. And even when the path looks different from what you planned, because honestly, I had no idea I would be leading a cancer support group. That was not in my plan. It wasn't God's plan. I had no idea that I would help women move from overwhelm into ownership, but that was God's plan. I had no idea that the brokenness of my past would be the foundation upon which I built a future. And so even though the path looks different, it doesn't mean that you're not going to get to where God wants you to go. Delays are divine protection. I remind myself of that all the time. Delays are divine protection. They are not punishment. Be okay with that. The third and final thing that I want to remind you of this morning is that you're not fighting alone. Now, if you are fighting alone, that is a decision. And I encourage you to make another decision, because God will send community. There are mentors. There are groups that we could get involved with. There are encouragers that God will send in our path to remind us of who we are. And I get that daily. There are people who tell me multiple times, you have to be an angel. That is an encouragement from God for me in my community. I find that in this community, whatever we need support in, whether it's a coach to come in to help the women in the community, they are willing. And so God will send helpers to remind you of who you are and of why your work is so valuable, just like how He's doing it for me. And And sometimes faith sounds like your own voice, and other times it's a friend saying, keep going, you've got this. I remember when I gave up doing retreats many years ago. Coach Gandhi, one of my accountability partners, she called me and she said, Gressa, what you doing? I said, what you mean what I doing? She said, what's happening? I believe in you. And I know that what you do at those retreats are so valuable that women don't get that type of pampering. Women don't get that type of pour into. And while the process may be arduous at times to get people in those retreats, the end result, whether we touch 5 or 20, the end result is people leave transformed. And I believe in you. So come on, DeQuessa, get back in the game. And her reminder said to me, if it's one person that I touch, that makes a difference. And so be open to hearing the voice of other people. And so as I wrap up this live today, I want you to think about the fact that you're in. If it's your health, if it's your mind, if it's your marriage, if it's your calling, please know that you may be tired. That's okay. You may be uncertain. That's okay. Just still believe that God is working all things together for your good. I have already survived so many things that tried to break me. And I'm sure you have too. And that's proof that you are equipped for what's next. And so if this message resonated with you in any way, please share it with someone else who you know who may be fighting their own silent battle. My voice, I wanted to have that type of value where I can reach people wherever they are and remind them that God is not forsaking them, and that despite their circumstances and in spite of what they see, there could be a positive end. And if you're feeling like you're at the end of your strength, let me remind you that you can be healed, you can be empowered, and you can be restored. So please don't stop believing. Don't stop praying, and don't stop showing up for the life that God still has planned for you. Faith doesn't always feel strong, but I can assure you that faith is always enough. God bless you and have a wonderful week ahead.